New Orleans, a city ravaged by devastation, stood at the crossroads of history. In 1855, the city embarked on a monumental journey, a grand reconstruction. How did this bustling port city rise from the ashes? The answer isn't just about rebuilding structures, it's about redefining the very soul of New Orleans. New Orleans, by 1855, was a city of unparalleled complexity and charm, a booming port where the Mississippi River met the Gulf of Mexico. It was a hub of trade, culture, and diversity, with French, Spanish, African, and Anglo influences all converging. The city thrived economically, driven by cotton, sugar, and the labor of enslaved people. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered. Political instability, economic shifts, and devastating floods had begun to erode the city's prosperity. The vibrant culture that once unified the people now became a source of division, with deep rifts between factions of race, class, and politics. New Orleans was a city on the brink of its golden age, fading into a storm of uncertainty. If you're fascinated by New Orleans history and want to dive deeper into its rise and fall, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories that explore the real events that shaped our world. By 1855, New Orleans was at a crossroads. The city, scarred by economic struggles, political turmoil, and natural disasters, was poised for a new chapter in its history. But this wasn't just about rebuilding infrastructure. It was a fight for New Orleans' identity. The Industrial Revolution was sweeping across the United States, and New Orleans, a city traditionally dependent on agriculture and trade, now found itself forced to embrace rapid industrialization. Entrepreneurs sought to modernize the economy, while architects and urban planners aimed to reshape the city's skyline. Local governments faced tough decisions about how to balance tradition with progress. The choices made during this time would determine whether the city could retain its cultural soul while transitioning into a new, more industrialized era. The stakes were high, and the future of New Orleans hung in the balance. By 1855, New Orleans stood on the brink of transformation as new technologies began to reshape the city's very foundation. Steam engines powered industry, bringing an era of mechanical innovation that altered the pace of construction. Railroads expanded, connecting New Orleans to the rest of the nation, while steamships revolutionized trade along the Mississippi River. New materials, such as iron and brick, replaced traditional wooden structures, allowing for sturdier, more fire-resistant buildings. This industrial boom not only changed the city's skyline, but also how its residents worked, lived, and interacted. With faster transportation and more resilient infrastructure, the people of New Orleans could now move goods and people more efficiently, fueling a growing economy. Yet, these advancements came with social consequences, shifting labor dynamics and sparking tensions between tradition and progress. As the city's identity evolved in the face of rapid change, the rebuilding of New Orleans in 1855 was not just a project of bricks and steel, but of human labor and sacrifice. Enslaved African Americans, migrant workers, and local artisans were the backbone of this reconstruction. They were the ones who cleared the rubble, built the foundations, and erected the buildings that would define the city's future. Enslaved people were forced into hard labor under brutal conditions. Yet their skills as masons, carpenters, and blacksmiths were invaluable. Migrant laborers, driven by the promise of work, also helped shape the city's infrastructure. And local artisans, some of whom had long been part of the city's creative fabric, contributed to the design and aesthetics of new structures. Their efforts, however, were often erased from official histories, their vital contributions overlooked, leaving them as the unsung architects of New Orleans' rebirth. The architecture of New Orleans, from its humble Creole cottages to its towering mansions and industrial buildings, was shaped by a unique cultural fusion. French, Spanish, African, and American influences melded together to create a style unlike any other. The city's Creole cottages, with their steep roofs and wide verandas, reflected French and Caribbean design elements, while the grand mansions, often adorned with wrought iron balconies, echoed the city's European heritage. African influences, seen in the use of open spaces and functional designs, also played a critical role in shaping the city's look. These architectural choices weren't just aesthetic. They symbolized the resilience of New Orleans, a city that, despite political and natural upheaval, managed to rebuild and redefine itself through its buildings. The legacy of this architectural diversity continues to define New Orleans to this day. As New Orleans rebuilt, it wasn't just the skyline that was changing. The city's social fabric began to unravel and reshape in the wake of economic and political upheaval. The once rigid divisions based on race, class, and heritage were tested as new economic opportunities emerged. The rapid industrialization, an influx of laborers, both free and enslaved, created a shifting workforce that demanded new systems of organization. As wealthier entrepreneurs built grand mansions, a growing working class of migrants and freed people began to settle into the expanding neighborhoods. Despite the promise of a more modern economy, tensions simmered beneath the surface. The city's rebirth was inseparable from the struggles for power, identity, and inclusion. This period of change would redefine not only New Orleans' economy, but also its social hierarchy. As New Orleans struggled to rebuild, external pressures from the broader world shaped its trajectory. The global economy was undergoing seismic shifts, with the rise of industrial capitalism and the expansion of international trade. Cotton, the lifeblood of the Southern economy, was experiencing a boom, but European competition for markets put immense pressure on New Orleans' trade dominance. The political instability of Europe, particularly the Napoleonic Wars and shifting alliances, also disrupted shipping routes and trade relations. These global forces impacted the city's recovery, making it clear that New Orleans' future would not only depend on local efforts, but also on how well it could adapt to the changing dynamics of international competition and economic modernization. By the end of its reconstruction, New Orleans had transformed. Its skyline, with newly built mansions and expanding industrial structures, stood as a symbol of progress. The bustling port reaffirmed its status as a key trade hub. Yet beneath this veneer of success, the scars of its past were evident. The social and economic divides had deepened, and the trauma of slavery and political unrest lingered. The city's identity, shaped by these struggles, faced the long-term consequences of compromises made during Reconstruction. The victories of the era were shadowed by unresolved issues of racial inequality, labor exploitation, and political fragmentation. These tensions would shape New Orleans' future, casting a long shadow into the 20th century. New Orleans' Reconstruction in 1855 offers timeless lessons for cities facing modern-day challenges. In the wake of economic collapse, political instability, and natural disasters, New Orleans rebuilt itself through technological innovation, the resilience of its people, and a reevaluation of its social structures. Today, cities around the world, from those dealing with climate change to those grappling with socio-political unrest, face similar crossroads. The key lessons lie in how to balance progress with the preservation of cultural identity, how labor forces adapt in times of upheaval, and how communities can use adversity to emerge stronger. New Orleans' story reminds us that rebuilding is never just about physical structures, but about the human spirit and collective action. New Orleans' 1855 reconstruction stands as a testament to the power of resilience, innovation, and the collective will of its people. But in the shadows of the grand buildings and new technologies, the city's past was forever altered. The echoes of its reconstruction still shape it today,